The training dome was huge. It stretched 5 kilometers across, big enough to hold 200 cadets from 30 different alien species. Today was special. Today was the final test that would decide who gets to join the Coalition Defense Force. Instructor Krell stood at the front. He was a Vrillian, which meant he was tall with red scales and 4 strong arms. His people had been the best warriors in the galaxy for 300 years. He looked at the students standing in neat rows before him. There were warriors from many worlds. Some had armor built into their skin. Some were made of crystal and could control computers with their minds. Some were massive and strong like walking tanks. And then there were the humans. 5 humans stood in the 3rd row. They looked so small and weak compared to everyone else. Krell had argued against letting them join the academy. Humans had no claws, no thick skin, no special powers. They were just soft creatures from a planet called Earth that nobody had heard of until recently. The smallest human was a woman named HFY Park. She was only 160 centimeters tall. She stood with her arms crossed, looking straight at Krell without fear. Her black hair was tied back tight, and her eyes were dark and sharp. The other students had started calling her something behind her back. "Cadet Park," Krell said loudly. "Step forward." HFY walked out of the line smoothly. She wore the same combat suit as everyone else, but it hung loose on her small body. Where other students filled out the suit with muscles or natural armor, she looked tiny inside it. Krell walked around her slowly. "Tell me, Cadet, what do you think you can do for the Coalition Defense Force? You have no claws." He showed his own sharp claws. "No weapons on your body. No thick skin to protect you. You cannot breathe poison gas like some species. You cannot survive in space without a suit. You cannot even lift half of what our youngest strong ones can carry." HFY's face did not change. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "No." Krell stopped in front of her. He towered over her small form. "Your species is weak. Do you know what the other teachers call you humans? Pests. Little soft pests, who somehow talked their way into this academy." He bent down, bringing his face close to hers. "Just useless pests, pretending to be warriors." Some of the other students laughed. Even some of the other humans looked uncomfortable. Tae-young Kim, the tallest human, made fists with his hands, but said nothing. HFY smiled. It was a small smile, just a tiny movement of her lips. But something about it made Krell feel strange. "Noted, sir," she said simply. Behind her, one of the Vrillian students said something in their own language. Jin Woo Lee, another human, whispered the translation. He called her a honey badger. It was meant to be mean. Someone had mentioned a small earth animal called a honey badger in a report once. They said it was too stupid to know when it should give up. The Vrillian students thought it was a perfect name for humans who kept trying even when they should quit. But HFY had heard this before. Unlike the teachers, she had actually studied honey badgers. She knew what they could do when cornered. "Return to formation." Krell dismissed her with a wave. "Today's test will prove which of you deserves to continue. It will be a team exercise. Different species mixed together, like real coalition missions." His eyes showed cruel amusement. "Each team will have 1 human. We will see how long they survive." The dome began to change around them. The smooth metal walls rippled and shifted into a harsh alien world. Sharp crystal rocks jutted up from red sand. The air became thinner, making some students reach for their breathing devices. Somewhere far away, a fake monster roared. The students were divided into 20 teams of 10 each. HFY was put in Team 7. Her teammates were 2 Vrillians, 3 of the big strong ones called Gorath, 2 crystal beings called Shardborn, 1 poison breather, and 1 other human named Hyunsik Cho. Hyunsik was quiet but smart about tactics. He gave HFY a quick nod. Their team leader was a Vrillian named Krath. For the past 6 months, he had made it very clear that he hated humans. He looked at HFY and Hyunsik like they were garbage. "Humans to the back," Krath ordered immediately. Try not to die, and make our score bad. The goal was simple. Travel 15 kilometers through dangerous land, get a special beacon from a protected area, and bring it back to the safe zone. Along the way, they would fight robot enemies and face other teams. Each team had standard weapons, though the humans had to carry lighter ones because of their smaller size. Move out, Krath shouted. Team 7 started moving. The Gorath went first because their thick skin could take damage. The Shardborn watched for electronic dangers. The Vrillians went ahead as scouts. HFY and HFY were pushed to the middle, practically invisible to their teammates. They had traveled less than 2 kilometers when trouble came. Robot enemies ahead, one of the Shardborn called out. 8 combat drones in the canyon. Krath did not wait. Gorath charged straight at them. Vrillians, attack from the side. Shardborn, mess up their targeting computers. Everyone else, shoot to support. What about us? HFY asked quietly. Stay out of the way, Krath shot back. The team rushed forward with perfect training. The Gorath took the enemy fire, while the Vrillians circled around. Within 90 seconds, 6 drones were destroyed. The last 2 tried to move, but the Shardborn had messed up their computers and they were half blind. It should have been a clean victory. But HFY had been watching the ground and the rocks, not just the drones. She noticed something the others, focused on the fight, had missed. The canyon walls were too perfect, too well placed to force teams into a trap zone. It's a trap, she shouted. More enemies in the canyon walls exploded with weapons fire. 12 more drones, hidden in the rocks, opened fire on Team 7 from high positions. The formation that had been perfect for the first fight was completely exposed to this attack from above. One Gorath fell immediately, his shields broken. A Vrillian took a shot to the shoulder and stumbled. The Shardborn, busy with their computers, were caught in the open. Fall back, Krath roared, but there was nowhere to go. The canyon was narrow behind them, a perfect kill zone. They were about to be wiped out in the first 15 minutes. That is when HFY moved. While everyone else had been advancing, she had been studying the canyon walls. She had noticed handholds and cracks in the crystal rocks, places where shadows fell. While her teammates thought about the fight ahead, she thought about alternatives. Sometimes the best weapon was not claws or armor. Sometimes it was the ability to look up. HFY, cover the left side. She did not wait for an answer. She just started running, not backward, not forward, but sideways, toward what looked like a straight cliff wall. What is that idiot doing? Krath snarled, but he was too busy organizing defense to stop her. HFY hit the wall at full speed and jumped. Her hands found the first hold's tiny edges that would never support a heavy Gorath or give grip to a Vrillian's claws. But human hands, with thumbs and sensitive fingers, locked on perfectly. She climbed, fast. The drone's targeting systems were programmed to track ground targets. They took precious seconds to adjust. By then, HFY was 5 meters up and moving sideways, using the crystal formations like a natural ladder. Her small size and light weight, the very things that made her seem weak, let her move across holds that would not support heavier species. Below, HFY understood immediately what she was doing. He fired at the drone positions HFY was approaching, forcing them to focus on him instead of the climber. HFY reached the first drone nest, a hidden platform carved into the canyon wall. The combat drone turned toward her, but she was already too close. Her hand went to her belt, pulling out a simple grenade. Humans had not invented energy shields or plasma weapons, but they had centuries of experience with explosives. She armed the grenade, dropped it into the nest, and pushed off the wall, swinging to the next handhold just as the explosion tore through the position. The drone and its platform shattered into crystal pieces. What? Krath's voice choked with surprise. HFY was already moving to the next position. And the next. She crossed the canyon wall like gravity was just a suggestion, hitting each drone nest with grenades or her small gun at point-blank range before the drones could track her. It took her 4 minutes to clear the entire ambush from an angle none of the drones or her teammates had expected anyone to use. When she dropped back to the canyon floor, breathing hard but unhurt, the team stared at her in shocked silence. path is clear, she said simply. Should we continue? Krath's jaw worked without sound for a moment. Finally, he managed. Move out. But this time, when the formation reorganized, nobody suggested the humans stay at the back. Team 7 moved forward through the dangerous landscape. The training dome kept changing around them, creating new challenges. After the canyon ambush, the team looked at Hae-1 and Hyun-Sik differently. They were no longer just weak humans to be protected. They were team members who could think and act. Krath still led the team, but now he listened when the humans spoke. The next obstacle appeared quickly. The ground ahead turned into a field of bubbling pools. Thick red liquid boiled in dozens of holes, giving off steam that smelled like acid. Other teams had already lost members here, their screams echoing across the dome as they stepped in the wrong places. Slow advance, Krath ordered. Test each step, Krath ordered. But Hyun-Sik was watching the pools carefully. His human eyes, evolved to see patterns, noticed something. The bubbles were not random. They followed a rhythm, a mathematical sequence. Big bubble, small bubble, small bubble, big bubble. Over and over. Wait, he said. There is a pattern. The safe spots appear between the sequences. He pointed. There, then there, then there. If we time it right, we can cross in half the time. A Shardborn checked his calculations. He is correct. The pattern repeats every 17 seconds. The team crossed the acid marsh using Hyun-Sik's pattern. While other teams tested every step or lost members to the acid, Team 7 moved quickly and safely. They gained precious time. In the observation room above the dome, Instructor Krell watched the screens showing all the teams. His face showed growing irritation. The tactical display tracked every student's position and health. What he saw made no sense to him. Replay the canyon fight, he ordered the computer. The hologram showed Hae-1's wall-climbing attack from different angles. Krell's crest flattened as he watched. It was effective. Disturbingly effective. Lucky, he muttered. Simple luck and good terrain. But as Team 7 continued through the test, that explanation became harder to believe. The next challenge was a gravity field. The team entered an area where gravity kept changing. One moment, it was normal. The next moment, it was 5 times stronger. The heavy species like Gorath and Vrillians crashed to the ground when gravity intensified, their own weight crushing them down. But the humans stayed on their feet. Their lighter bodies meant less weight pulling them down. More importantly, they could adjust their movements mid-step. When gravity changed, they shifted their balance instantly. Where other species were built for one environment, humans were built to adapt to change. They are compensating for their team's weaknesses, said Instructor Vel, a Shardborn tactical expert watching with Krell. That is advanced teamwork. They are barely contributing, Krell insisted. The others are carrying them, but even he did not believe his own words anymore. Team 7 was now in 4th place overall. They approached the main objective, a fortified position holding the beacon they needed to retrieve. It was designed to be nearly impossible. Heavy defenses, overlapping weapons fire, multiple strong points. The expected strategy was to charge straight in, accepting casualties to reach the goal. The team stopped at the perimeter. Krath called for assessment. Direct assault will cost us at least 3 team members, one of the Vrillians reported. We will lose time bringing them back. The side approach is covered with mines, a Shardborn added. Attack from above? Krath looked at the canyon walls around the position. Defenses point upward. We would be shot down. They were stuck. Other teams would probably charge straight in, accepting the losses as the price of speed. That is when Hae-1 spoke. What if we do not attack at all? Krath turned to her. For the first time, there was no mockery in his look. Explain. The beacon is a retrieval objective, not a combat objective, she said, showing a map on her wrist display. We just need the beacon. We do not need to destroy the position. And the defenses are automated, right? They are programmed to stop attacks. Your point? So we do not attack. She highlighted a section of the perimeter. We create a distraction here, make it look like the main assault. While the defenses focus there, A small team goes in from this blind spot. There is no blind spot, the Shardborn said. I scanned the whole perimeter. There is now. HFY pointed to where her earlier grenade use had created piles of broken crystals. Those fragments are bending the scanner beams. There is a 2-meter gap in coverage. A human could fit through. The team looked at the map, then at each other. It was risky. It required perfect timing, and it put the person going in at extreme risk. I will do it, HFY said. I am smallest. Lowest heat signature. If anyone can get through unseen, it is me. Hyunsik stepped forward. I will coordinate the distraction. I can fake multiple heat signatures to make them think we have twice our numbers. Krath was silent for a long moment. Everything in his training said to use strength and overwhelming force. But he was also trained to recognize good tactics when he saw them. Do it, he decided. But if you fail, then we are no worse off than a direct assault, HFY finished. Except you will not have lost 3 team members. 20 minutes later, the distraction began. Hyunsik's fake signatures had the automated defenses tracking phantom enemies across 2/3 of the perimeter. Weapons fire lit up the area, shooting at targets that did not exist. In the chaos, HFY slipped through the gap. She moved through the fortified position like a ghost. Her small form used every shadow, every bit of cover. The defenses were not built to track something so small and quiet moving through blind spots. They were designed to stop armies, not infiltrators. She reached the beacon, a glowing crystal cylinder in a protected vault. Her fingers flew over the access panel. Human hands, evolved for fine work, manipulated the complex lock faster than any species with claws could manage. The beacon came free. Package secured, she whispered into her radio. Coming out. Negative. Krath's voice was tense. Defense system just activated secondary protocols. You are locked in. HFY looked up. Heavy blast doors were closing over the vault exits. She had maybe 10 seconds before she was trapped. She did not think. Did not plan. Just acted on pure human instinct, the same instinct that had driven her ancestors to outrun predators across ancient plains. To survive when larger, stronger, more specialized creatures went extinct. She ran. The blast doors were closing at speeds designed to stop any known species, but they were calculated based on size, mass, and momentum. A Vrillian would have to stop, or be crushed. A Gorath could not move fast enough, but HFY was small, light, and desperate. She hit the narrowing gap at full sprint, turned her body sideways, and slid. The door seals brushed her combat suit with centimeters to spare. She tumbled out into the open air, rolled to her feet, and kept running. I am clear. Fall back to extraction. In the observation room, Krell stared at the display in silence. Around him, other instructors were talking with surprise and admiration in their voices. Instructor? Vel prompted. Your assessment? Krell's claws scraped against the console. Anomaly. Statistical outlier. One successful operation does not. Team 7 just moved into first place, the computer announced. Estimated extraction time, 43 minutes ahead of second place. 43. The instructor's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ground together. He pulled up the full statistics for all human cadets across all teams. Every single team with a human in it was performing above predictions. Not by a little, by a lot. The humans were not being carried by their teams. They were carrying their teams. Continue observation, he said tightly. I want detailed analysis of every human action for the rest of the exercise. But even as he said it, Krell knew what he would see. He had spent his entire career studying warfare and tactics. He knew what he was looking at: adaptability, problem solving, the willingness to use methods nobody expected, and something else. Something that made no tactical sense but was undeniably effective. Those fragile little creatures simply refused to quit. Team 7 reached the extraction zone with a comfortable lead. Other teams were still fighting through the fortified position or struggling with the terrain. The humans' unconventional tactics had saved hours of time. As they secured the beacon in the extraction receiver, Krath looked at HFY with an expression she had never seen directed at a human before. Respect. You were right, he said quietly. About everything. The distraction, the infiltration, the timing. Humans are good at unconventional thinking, HFY replied. We have had a lot of practice being the underdogs. Around them, the rest of Team 7 gathered. Even the Gorath, who had barely acknowledged the humans before, gave approving nods. The Shardborn calculated that without the humans' contributions, they would have finished in 10th place at best. But the test was not over yet. Not completely. Krell's voice boomed through the dome one more time. Attention all cadets. Phase 2 is now active. The ground began to shake. The canyon walls started to move. The entire arena was transforming again. And this time, the real test was about to begin. The training dome rumbled and shifted. What had been a straight path with clear objectives suddenly changed into something far more dangerous. The crystal canyon walls retracted into the floor. The narrow passages opened up into a wide, flat battlefield. Teams that had been separated by kilometers of terrain could now see each other across the open ground. Attention all cadets. Instructor Krell's voice boomed through the dome. Phase 2 is now active. New objective: survival. Team 7 stood at the extraction zone, the beacon secured in their possession. They had been celebrating their first-place position. Now they watched as the landscape transformed around them. Multiple team engagement protocols are now in effect, Krell continued. The beacon must still reach extraction. But only one team will succeed. All others will fail. You have 2 hours. It was a crucible, a test of what happens when coalition forces face overwhelming odds and competing objectives, and it immediately turned 20 teams into enemies. Krath swore in his native language. We are the target. Every team knows we are in first place. He was right. Across the arena, other teams were already turning toward them. Team 7 had the beacon, which made them priority 1 for 19 other groups of 10 cadets each. Defensive position, Krath ordered. We dig in and hold until extraction time. That is suicide, HFY said quietly. We cannot hold against 19 teams for 2 hours. You have a better idea, human? She looked across the transformed arena, at the teams beginning to move toward them, and her mind raced. The honey badger nickname had been meant as an insult, but she had studied her namesake. Honey badgers did not win fights by being stronger. They won by being more vicious, more persistent, and more willing to do the unexpected than their opponents. Yes, she said. We flipped the arena. Explain. Quickly. HFY pulled up the tactical map. Right now, it is 19 versus 1. We cannot win that. But what if it becomes 10 versus 10? Or better, what if they fight each other? They are not going to just. The test measures individual performance too, right? HFY interrupted. Every team wants to be first. But they also want to beat their rivals. Team 3 is all Vrillians. Team 8 is all Gorath. There has been bad blood between them. All semester. Hyunsik caught on immediately. We make them the threat, not us. How? Krath demanded. We give them the beacon, HFY said. Or make them think we have. Then we sit back and watch them fight each other for it. It was bold. Possibly insane. Exactly the kind of plan that made perfect sense to a human, and no sense to anyone else. We do not have time for complex deceptions, one of the Shardborn protested. We do not need complex. HFY was already moving, pulling components from her kit. We just need convincing. Hyunsik, can you copy the beacon's energy signature? Give me 3 minutes. You have 2. Everyone else, we need to create a false trail. Make it look like we are running scared toward the West Ridge. Krath stared at her for a long moment. Every instinct trained into him said to rely on strength, position, and firepower. But he had also been trained to recognize tactical brilliance when he saw it. Do it, he ordered. All units, follow the human's plan. The next 90 minutes were controlled chaos. Team 7 created a fake beacon using Hyunsik's technical skills and some creative improvisation. They made a loud, obvious escape attempt toward the West Ridge, drawing multiple teams into pursuit. Then they split up. The main force went to ground in a hidden position, while HFY and 2 Vrillians carried the fake beacon into the densest part of the battlefield. When Team 3 intercepted them and seized what they thought was the prize, Team 7 did not fight back. They retreated in apparent panic, making it look like the beacon had been captured. The reaction was immediate. Team 8 saw Team 3 celebrating and assumed they had the real beacon. They launched an assault. Team 12 joined in. Within minutes, half the teams in the arena were moving toward that position, all trying to claim what they thought was the objective. Meanwhile, Team 7, with the real beacon secured, circled around the chaos toward the extraction point. "It is working," Krath breathed, watching from hiding as 3 teams engaged in a brutal fight. By the ancestors, it is actually working. But not everyone was fooled. Team 14, led by a brilliant shardborn named Vel, had been watching Team 7's movements carefully. When they noticed the human team's retreat was actually a tactical repositioning, Vel understood. "They still have it," he told his team. "Track them, quietly." Team 14 began following Team 7, waiting for the right moment to strike. HFY caught the tail first. "We have company. Team 14, about 300 meters back. Can we outrun them to extraction?" Krath asked. "Not with their speed specialist," Hyun-sik said, checking his scanner. "She will catch us in open ground. Then we fight." "No," HFY was thinking ahead again. "We turn their strength into weakness. Everyone, listen carefully." When Team 14 finally made their move, rushing forward to intercept, they ran straight into what looked like a perfect defensive position. Team 7 appeared to be dug in behind cover, weapons ready. It was textbook military tactics, exactly what any trained force would do when they could not run, which is why it was wrong. "It is a trap!" Vel shouted, but too late. Team 7 was not behind the cover. They were already past it, having set up their weapons on automatic timers to fire by themselves. By the time Team 14 realized the deception and fought through the empty position, Team 7 had reached the extraction zone. The beacon locked into the receiver. Confirmation lights flashed green. Team 7's successful extraction, the computer announced. Final test complete. First place, Team 7. Time, 3 hours, 17 minutes, 42 seconds. Second place, but HFY was not listening to the rankings. She was watching the faces of her team members. The Vrillians who had called her a pest. The Gorath who had ignored her. The Shardborn who had dismissed human intelligence. They all looked at her differently now. Krath approached her as the rest of the team gathered. The Vrillian warrior met her eyes with something she had never seen directed at a human before. "You flipped the entire arena," he said quietly. "Made our weakness our strength. Made them fight each other while we walked away. And humans are good at that," HFY replied. "We have had a lot of practice being the underdogs." One of the Gorath spoke up, his deep voice rumbling. "I doubted you. I thought humans were too weak to be warriors." "I was wrong," a Shardborn added. "Your tactical improvisation exceeds that of species bred for warfare. This is unexpected." "We adapt," Hyun-sik said simply. "That is what humans do best." In the observation chamber, Krell stared at the final results in silence. The statistics were undeniable now. Of the top 10 teams, 8 had humans in them. The 2 that did not had been eliminated in the multi-team chaos that Team 7 had orchestrated. Every single human cadet had exceeded projections. Not through strength, not through specialized adaptations, through creativity, adaptability, and a stubborn refusal to accept that they were outmatched. Instructor Vel approached Krell carefully. "Instructor, I believe a reassessment of the human species' military value may be warranted." Krell's claws scraped against the console. His pride fought with his tactical training. Pride said to reject the evidence, to find excuses, to maintain that humans were just pests. But his training centuries of Vrillian military excellence said something different. It said that any commander who ignored a tactical advantage because of prejudice was a fool. And whatever else he was, Krell was not a fool. Reassessment noted, he growled. Then, more quietly, summon Cadet Park to my office. We need to discuss her future assignment. Vel's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Sir, if I may ask, what changed your assessment? Krell watched the replay of HFY's infiltration, her escape from the closing doors, her orchestration of the multi-team deception. I called them pests, he said finally. I was not entirely wrong. But I failed to understand what kind of pest. He pulled up information about Earth fauna. Specifically the creature humans called a honey badger. The small predator that fought animals 5 times its size. The creature that simply refused to acknowledge it should lose. They are not weak, Krell said, more to himself than to Vel. They are unconventional. There is a difference. On the arena floor, Team 7 was being congratulated by teams that had finished behind them. Even former rivals showed respect. The humans had proven something important today. Not that they were the strongest, not that they were the most specialized, but that sometimes, the most dangerous warrior is not the one with the biggest claws. It is the one who refuses to fight the way you expect. The debriefing chamber was more crowded than usual. Word of Team 7's performance had spread through the academy like wildfire. Instructors from multiple departments had gathered to observe. They filled the observation platforms, all wanting to see the human who had achieved the highest score in academy history. HFY stood at attention in the center of the room. Her small frame somehow commanded the space. She wore her standard cadet uniform, now marked with the badges of completion and excellence. Around her, holographic displays showed key moments from the test. The door opened. Instructor Krell entered last, his forearms clasped behind his back. The chamber fell completely silent. Every eye turned to watch the confrontation between the instructor, who had called humans useless pests, and the cadet who had proven him wrong. Cadet Park, Krell began, his voice carefully controlled. Your performance in the final test was notable. Thank you, sir. I did not say it was good. I said it was notable. He began to circle her slowly, just as he had done at the start of the test. But this time, something was different in his posture. The mockery was gone. You violated standard tactical doctrine at least 7 times. You endangered yourself with unnecessary risks. You relied on improvisation rather than established protocols. Yes, sir. And yet, he stopped in front of her. Your team achieved the highest score in this academy's history. You turned certain defeat into victory using nothing but creativity, and what I can only describe as audacity. He gestured, and the holographic displays came to life. They showed HFY climbing the canyon wall, infiltrating the beacon position, orchestrating the multi-team deception. Each moment was analyzed from multiple angles. I called you a pest, Krell continued, and several instructors shifted uncomfortably. Useless. Weak. I believed humanity had nothing to contribute to coalition forces. His crest rippled in what might have been embarrassment. I was wrong. A murmur ran through the assembled instructors. A Vrillian admitting error was extremely rare. It showed strength of character that many had not expected. You want to know what I see now when I look at you, Cadet Park? He pointed to the hologram showing her sliding under the closing blast door. I see someone who does not fight the way they are expected to. Someone who looks at impossible situations and finds the angle no one else considered. Someone who refuses to accept limitations. He turned to address the entire chamber. The other cadets called her honey badger as an insult. But I have studied Earth animals since the test concluded. Do you know what a honey badger actually is? He pulled up an image of the small Earth predator. Next to hollow projections of Vrillians and Goreth. It looked absurd. Tiny. Simple. Seemingly harmless. It is a small creature that regularly fights animals 5 times its size. It has been documented attacking lions, massive herbivores, even young elephants. It has no special weapons, no thick armor. Minimal size advantage, but it has something else. He looked directly at HFY. It simply refuses to acknowledge that it should lose. It fights with such determination, such persistence, such complete disregard for conventional wisdom that larger predators often retreat rather than deal with it. Krell's crest rose fully, a sign of deep respect among Vrillians. Cadet Park embodies that spirit. And having reviewed the performance of all human cadets, I have concluded that her species brings something to the coalition that we desperately need. Not claws, not armor, but the ability to look at any situation and ask, what if we did something nobody expects? He turned to the senior staff gathered in the observation areas. I am recommending immediate acceleration of the human integration program. Furthermore, I am proposing that Cadet Park be assigned to the Coalition Special Operations Command upon graduation. Special Operations? One of the instructors questioned. That is our most elite unit. Surely if anyone has earned it, she has. Krell cut him off firmly. Special Operations needs soldiers who can think unconventionally, who can turn weakness into strength, who can flip entire arenas when traditional tactics fail. He looked at Heywan. I cannot think of a better candidate. For the first time since entering the chamber, Heywan allowed herself a small smile. I accept, sir. You have not graduated yet, cadet, Krell said, but there was warmth in his tone now. Do not get ahead of yourself. I would not dream of it, sir. Her smile widened slightly. Though I should mention there are 4 other humans in my class who perform just as well in their respective teams. I am aware. Krell pulled up more data, showing performance statistics for all human cadets. Cadet Tae-young Kim showed exceptional leadership under pressure. Cadet Jinwoo Lee demonstrated advanced technical capabilities. I am recommending special operations consideration for all qualified human candidates. He paused, then added more quietly. I owe your species an apology, and I owe you personally a significant one. I let prejudice blind me to capability. That is unacceptable for any officer, especially an instructor. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. You were not entirely wrong, Heywan said carefully. Humans are physically weaker than most species here. We do lack natural weapons and armor. On paper, we look like terrible soldiers. She met his eyes steadily. But Earth taught us something before we reached the stars. We evolved as persistence hunters. We did not outrun our prey or overpower it. We just outlasted it. We kept going when anything sensible would stop. And when we could not win through strength, we learned to win through strategy. She gestured to the hologram still showing moments from the test. Every species in the coalition evolved for their environment. Vrillians became warriors. Gorath became living tanks. Shardborn became technical specialists. But humans? We evolved to adapt. That is our specialty, being flexible enough to survive anything. Krell considered this carefully. And when you apply that adaptability to warfare? You get soldiers who flip arenas, sir. A sound rippled through the chamber that Haiwan had never heard before. Vrillian laughter. Deep, rumbling, but genuine and warm. Indeed, Krell agreed. Dismissed, cadet. I look forward to seeing what you accomplish in special operations. As Heywan turned to leave, Instructor Vel approached her. The Shardborn's crystalline form pulsed with colors that indicated curiosity and respect. A word, cadet. Sir? Your tactical improvisation in the test that was not just luck or instinct. You had been planning those moves, studying the arena, had you not? Since the moment I arrived at this academy, sir, Heywan admitted. I knew we would be underestimated. I figured that was an advantage if I used it right, turning disadvantage into advantage. Very human of you. Vel's form pulsed with what passed for amusement among Shardborn. Tell me, what did you think when they first called you Honey Badger? Heywan's smile turned sharp. I thought, perfect. Let them think I am just a stubborn pest. It means they will not see the knife until it is already where it hurts. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Of course, sir. Metaphorically. Vel's laugh sounded like wind chimes. You are going to do very well in special operations, Cadet Park. Very well indeed. Later that day, Heywan met with the other human cadets in their shared quarters. Tae-young, Jinwoo, Hyunsik, and the fifth human, a woman named Bo-Ra Kang, all gathered to celebrate. Did you see Krell's face? Taeyong laughed. I thought his crest was going to fall off when he had to admit he was wrong. Round. He is a good instructor, Haewon said thoughtfully. He let evidence change his mind. That takes strength. Still felt good though. Jinwoo grinned. After 6 months of being called pests, we are pests, Bo-Ra said with a smile. Just more dangerous than they expected. They raised their drinks in a toast. Around them, other cadets from other species were celebrating too. But there was a new energy in the academy now. The humans had proven something important. Not that they were better than other species. But that different did not mean inferior. That sometimes the smallest soldier could make the biggest difference. That creativity and adaptability could be just as valuable as strength and armor. What do you think special operations will be like? Hyunsik asked. Haewon smiled. Challenging. Dangerous. Exactly what we need. Think they will underestimate us there too? Probably. At first. Her smile turned into something sharper. Then we will flip another arena. The other humans laughed. They had spent their whole lives being underestimated. Being told they were too small, too weak, too fragile for the big challenges. But they had also spent their whole lives proving doubters wrong. And that, Haewon realized, was the real lesson of the honey badger. Not that size did not matter. But that determination, creativity, and the refusal to quit could overcome almost any disadvantage. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when given a chance, and Haewon could not wait to show them. 3 months had passed since the final test. The Coalition Special Operations Command briefing room was filled with the best soldiers from a dozen species. Veterans of countless battles sat around the tactical table. Each one had earned their place through exceptional skill and bravery. Haewon Park sat among them, now wearing the black uniform with silver insignia that marked Special Operations soldiers. The uniform fit her better than the cadet suit had. Tailored to her small human frame, she no longer looked like a child playing soldier. She looked like what she was, a warrior who had earned her place through skill and determination. Beside her sat Taeyoung Kim and Jinwoo Lee. All 3 humans had graduated with honors and been assigned to the same Special Operations unit. They were the first humans in the elite force, and everyone was watching to see if they could maintain the performance they had shown in training. The mission commander entered the room. He was a Vrillian named Kor, a veteran with 30 years of combat experience and scars to prove it. His crest bore the marks of a dozen major campaigns. He looked around the table, his eyes settling on the 3 humans with an expression that was hard to read. Today's mission, he began without preamble, is a hostage rescue. Deep in enemy territory. Multiple fortified positions. Overwhelming opposition forces. He pulled up a holographic display showing a heavily defended compound. Intelligence estimates 200 enemy combatants. We have 12 operators. The room was silent. Those were terrible odds, even for special operations. Standard assault tactics will not work, Kor continued. The compound is too well defended. Any direct approach will result in heavy casualties and likely mission failure. He looked around the table. I need unconventional approaches. Ideas that the enemy will not expect. Several operators spoke up, suggesting various tactics. All of them were variations on proven methods: infiltration through sewers, aerial insertion, electronic warfare, to disable defenses. All good ideas, but none that would truly surprise a well-prepared enemy. Haewon had been studying the holographic display carefully, her human eyes taking in details that others might miss. She saw the pattern in the defenses, the spaces between sensor coverage, the assumptions the enemy had made about how they might be attacked. Sir, she said, standing. I think I have an idea. But you are not going to like it. Kor turned to her, his crest rising with interest. Will it work? Probably not. But neither will anything sensible. A ripple of surprise went through the room. But Kor's expression changed. It was the same look Krath had given her during the academy test, the recognition that sometimes the most dangerous plan was the most effective. Then let us hear it, Honey Badger. The nickname had spread beyond the academy. Throughout the coalition forces, people now knew about the small human who had flipped an entire arena. Some still meant it as mockery, but most used it with respect, even admiration. HFY pulled up the tactical display and began explaining her plan. It was audacious. It relied on the enemy making assumptions about how an attack would come. It put operators in extreme danger. And it had almost no margin for error. It was also brilliant. You want to use their own defenses against them, Kor said slowly, studying the plan. Make them think we are attacking from the east, while we actually infiltrate from the position they think is most secure. Yes, sir. They have concentrated their forces expecting a standard special operations approach. They are not expecting us to do the opposite of what makes tactical sense. A Goroth operator shook his massive head. It is suicide. If the diversion fails, the infiltration team will be trapped with no support. If the standard approach fails, we all die anyway, Taeyong pointed out. At least this way, we have surprise on our side. Jinwoo was already working on technical support. I can spoof our electronic signatures to make 12 operators look like 50. Create phantom heat sources, fake radio traffic, make them think they are facing a much larger force. Kor was silent for a long moment. He had commanded special operations for 15 years. He had seen countless battles. And he knew that sometimes, the craziest plan was the best plan because nobody expected it. We execute in 4 hours, he decided. HFY, you lead the infiltration team. Taeyong, coordinate the diversion. Jinwoo, electronic warfare. The rest of you, assignments will follow. 4 hours later, they were in position. The night was dark, and the enemy compound blazed with lights and sensor sweeps. 200 enemy soldiers felt safe behind their walls and weapons. They were about to learn what happens when you face a honey badger. The diversion began right on schedule. Taeyong's team created a massive demonstration on the eastern perimeter: explosions, gunfire, fake radio chatter, suggesting a force of 50 operators mounting a full assault. The enemy reacted exactly as predicted, rushing forces to defend against the apparent main attack. While chaos erupted on the east side, HFY led a team of 4 operators, 2 Shardborn, 1 Vrillian, and herself, to the western wall. It was the most heavily fortified section, which is exactly why the enemy had pulled defenders away from it. They assumed nobody would be foolish enough to attack the strongest point. But HFY was not attacking, she was infiltrating. The wall was smooth metal, 30 meters high, designed to be unclimbable. For most species, it was. But HFY had noticed something during mission planning. The wall's surface had tiny ventilation ports, each one barely large enough for human fingers. She began to climb. The Shardborn watched in amazement as the small human ascended the wall, using holds that would not support a Vrillian's claws or a Goroth's bulk. Her light weight and human dexterity let her move up surfaces others could not even attempt. At the top, she deployed a silent climbing rope for the others, then slipped over the wall into the compound. The hostages were being held in a central building. Guards were stationed along predictable patrol routes. Security systems covered all the obvious approach vectors. But HFY did not take the obvious routes. She moved through blind spots, across rooftops, through maintenance corridors. Her small size let her fit through spaces others could not access. Her human ability to think 3 steps ahead let her anticipate guard movements. The team reached the hostage building in 12 minutes without raising a single alarm. Honey Badger to command, she whispered into her radio. In position. Beginning extraction, Kor's voice came back. Understood. Diversion team is taking heavy fire. Work, fast. The next 8 minutes were the longest of HFY's life. The team moved through the building, neutralizing guards silently, locating the 12 hostages, coalition diplomats captured during peace negotiations. Each hostage was weak, frightened, but alive. We are leaving, HFY told them quietly. Stay silent. Follow exactly where I lead. Getting in had been difficult. Getting out with 12 additional people would be nearly impossible, which is when HFY did something that made perfect sense to a human and no sense to anyone else. Instead of heading back to the wall they had infiltrated through, she led the group deeper into the compound. Toward the main gate. What are you doing? One of the Shardborn operators hissed. That is the most defended position. Exactly, HFY whispered back. which is why all the guards are currently on the eastern wall. The main gate is practically empty. It was true. The diversion had pulled almost every defender to the opposite side of the compound. The main gate, normally the most heavily guarded entrance, had only a skeleton crew. The team moved through shadows and maintenance corridors until they were 50 meters from the main gate. HFY signaled Jinwoo. "Now," she whispered. The electronic warfare began. Every sensor, every camera, every alarm in the compound suddenly showed ghost images. The enemy's security system was flooded with false readings. Guards saw phantom intruders everywhere except where the real team was moving. In the confusion, HFY's team simply walked out the main gate, the hostages hidden among them wearing captured enemy uniforms that Jinwoo had arranged to be left in strategic locations. By the time the enemy realized what had happened, the special operations team was already at the extraction point, loading into dropships. The mission was a complete success. 0 casualties. All hostages recovered. The enemy never even saw them. Back at base, the entire operation was reviewed in detail. Commanders from across coalition forces watched the mission recordings in stunned silence. "She walked out the front gate," one general said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Right past the guards, while they were looking everywhere else," another added. Unconventional does not begin to describe it. Kor stood before the assembled leadership with visible pride. This is what humans bring to coalition forces. Not just one brilliant cadet. An entire species that thinks differently. That sees opportunities where we see only obstacles. He pulled up statistics showing human performance across all military units. In the 3 months since graduation, human soldiers had contributed to 17 successful operations that would have failed using conventional tactics. "I recommend immediate expansion of human recruitment," Kor said, "and I recommend that Operator Park be promoted to team leader for unconventional operations." There was no debate. The vote was unanimous. Later that night, HFY sat with Tae-young and Jin-woo in the operator's lounge. They were exhausted but satisfied. The rescued diplomats were being reunited with their families. Another successful mission completed. "Do you remember when Instructor Krell called us useless pests?" Tae-young asked with a tired smile. "Every day," HFY replied. "It keeps me motivated." "Think we changed his mind?" Jin-woo wondered. "We did more than that," HFY said thoughtfully. "We changed how the entire coalition thinks about unconventional warfare. About adaptability. About refusing to accept that something cannot be done." She looked at her friends. These other humans who had faced the same doubts and proved the same worth. Earth gave us something special. Not claws or armor or special powers. It gave us the ability to survive anything by adapting to everything. And when we brought that to the stars, we brought a weapon nobody expected. "The honey badger spirit," Tae-young said. "Exactly. Small. Underestimated. But absolutely relentless and completely unpredictable." Underestimated. News of the successful rescue mission spread through coalition forces rapidly. Other human cadets at the academy heard about it and trained harder. Human recruits across the galaxy pointed to it as proof of what they could accomplish. And enemies of the coalition began to fear a new designation: honey badger teams. Small units of human operators who did not fight the way you expected, who turned your strengths into weaknesses, who simply refused to accept defeat. Instructor Krell watched the mission recordings in his office, alone. He studied HFY's movements, her decisions, her complete disregard for conventional tactical wisdom that somehow resulted in perfect success. He thought about how wrong he had been, how prejudice had blinded him to potential, how close he had come to dismissing humanity's greatest contribution to coalition forces. And he thought about all the other species in the galaxy who might be underestimated, overlooked, dismissed as useless. The next day, he changed his training protocols. No longer would students be judged solely on physical attributes or specialized adaptations. Now, they would also be tested on creativity, adaptability, and unconventional thinking. The Honey Badger Protocols, they called them, and every cadet, regardless of species, learned the lesson that a small human had taught the entire coalition. Sometimes the smallest warrior makes the biggest difference. Sometimes weakness is just strength that nobody recognizes yet. And sometimes, the best way to win is to flip the entire arena. Haewon Park, the useless pest who became a legend, smiled when she heard about the new protocols. Her legacy was not just the missions she completed or the enemies she defeated. It was changing how warriors thought about warfare itself. And that, she decided, was the greatest victory of all.